The best way to predict the future is to create it. You're listening to We Are Future Talk series, the show that helps you to future-proof your career, your team, and your business.
We give you tangible insights to reimagine leadership and talent development for a more complex, more connected, and more competitive environment so you can stay on top of your game.
Hi, I'm Petra Singh, founder and lead consultant for brand and talent at the 360 Talent Co. and Impact.
And my name is Jen Ryan, lead consultant for global teams and culture at the 360 Talent Co.
Make sure you subscribe to get weekly tips and tricks on all things future of work.
And it would mean the world to us if you can leave us a rating and review so we can help more leaders to create the future together.
Now let's dive in and take control over your future.
Welcome back. We are in 2020 after having a little bit of a break. Jen,
Yes.
How was your Christmas?
It was nice. It was actually quite relaxed in a surprising way. So I'm glad that we had some time off from doing some podcasting. I have to admit. How was yours? You went back to Europe?
Yeah, well, it was cold. It was quite full on, let's put it that way. It was a 3 weeks round trip through Europe with everyone in tow. So yeah, it was. I learned a lot about myself. Let's put it that way.
Okay, well, so we've come back. We've obviously had a bit of a break, and now we're in 2020. So we've put together some of the key trends that we're seeing shaping the way that we work, and we wanted to just go through some of those with you and what it means for you in terms of practical application.
Exactly, because what our episodes are about is to give you some tangible and actionable recommendations that you can implement straight away to prepare and create the future of work.
Yeah.
So today we are covering 10 trends that we have seen are up and coming, have shaped a little bit 2019, but are definitely here for 2020 and beyond. And in the next episodes, we'll also give you some tangible tips and tricks on how you can actually implement and respond to those changes. And the first one that we want to address is the workforce. We see that millennials make up already 50% of the workforce.
Yeah, and why this is such an important trend to consider is that knowing that they make up the majority of the workforce, we also are aware or understand that they are made up very differently. They've been exposed or have had a different upbringing to the other generations prior to that. And so some expectations, not some, but all of their expectations are very different in terms of what they're looking for in their work and what they're looking for in terms of their career.
Absolutely, because they're growing up with technology in their hand, which means they've got all the information and access to all the knowledge that they want literally within a click or a swipe away.
Yeah.
So they expect from a company and from their employer a very different offer to what the baby boomers faced.
I guess that expectation of instantaneous either feedback or acknowledgement, even when it goes, it comes to applying for roles or meeting with employers, that's really important to them. It's just, I guess, being taken through the journey in terms of that kind of situation. From a business point of view, it's also looking at how do we attract millennials, how do we induct them, so those first few days or months, and what does that experience feel like, and then what are we doing to retain or ensure that they stay with us?
Yeah, and a lot of work that we are doing is to recruit based on potential rather than on proficiency, because given 85% of jobs that will be here in 2030, they don't even exist yet. So if you only recruit based on previous experience, you probably won't have the right workforce and the skill sets in order to prepare for the future. So the first trends that millennials make up 50% of the workforce is already a big shift on how we do business and how we develop talents.
Yeah, definitely. I think the other thing with millennials too is to consider how you can have value-based propositions in both who you are as an organisation and who you are as leaders, because they really align, or they know their values so well that they're looking to work with or be a part of organisations that align to the way that they want to contribute to the world.
Yeah, and taking it a step further, the next generation after millennials, the Gen Zs, they face an even faster paced development within their career. Some studies show that within their professional life, they're going through 5 different careers, and within those 5 careers, they will have 17 different jobs and will only stay in a role for 1.8 years. Not just because they're getting bored with what they're doing, but also because of tasks getting irrelevant or replaced by technology.
Yeah, completely different world to, say, generations before, where it was quite common for someone to stay within the same organisation for 20 plus years. That just doesn't happen anymore. It's not continuing to happen at the same rate.
Yeah, which also leads us into the talent development. When we know that so many tasks can be replaced, having the traditional model of talent development and learning is not applicable anymore.
Yeah.
Which leads us into the third trend, that's the way of learning is changing. So many professions don't actually need a university degree where you spend 4+ years studying something, because in a second you have even taken an exam, it might not even be relevant.
Yeah, definitely. And I think more workplace environments are becoming more ambiguous. Obviously can't say that word after Christmas. But in terms of some of the skills that they're looking for, and Petra touched on it before, that whole recruit for potential as opposed to proficiency is so important, because we need people to always look at developing skills that allow them to be adaptable and be agile and work in environments that they've never worked in before. And similarly, the learning needs to be integrated in such a way that it doesn't take 4 years to learn, that it's bite-sized learning. It can be integrated in their, into their day-to-day. So whether it's on-the-job training or listening to a podcast or reading a summary of a book, like these are all different ways that people are looking to learn, because it's much easier to digest in the way that we work and the way that we take in information now.
Yeah, which leads us into our next trend, number 4, that we see much more complexity. So we don't have the time to slowly upskill. Everything gets more fast-paced, more connected, more complex, and we're also competing with a much broader global workforce these days. Facing this ambiguity means that we need to respond much quicker, and not just respond or react, but actually to initiate changes.
Yeah, I definitely see the trend where we are looking at talent that are able to work in situations that they haven't had before, and how do they manage uncertainty? Do they have the resilience? Do they have the persistence? Do they have the basic know-how to kind of navigate through environments like that? Because that is essentially what's happening, is that we're embracing technologies that are changing the way that consumers are wanting to buy, the way that people want to work, the way that people travel to work. All these sorts of things are changing, and so seeing or creating environments where people thrive in that environment as opposed to resist it or even fear it is really important. And so that's something to consider. How do you create that complex or ever-changing environment and ensure that you're giving people the opportunity to practically use those skills that are going to be so relevant?
And one of the ways that we help companies to build those teams is through hackathons, which means we're creating an environment which is very similar to the real world and simulates a typical day where teams work together with different skill sets. They've never met each other, and they're getting presented a challenge that they have to work on. So we see them in highly stressful situations. We see how they come up with ideas. What kind of questions do they ask? How do they interact with each other? How do they manage conflict when people don't agree with each other? But also, how do they navigate their own emotions when they present in front of a large audience and the senior executive team?
Yes, and probably another thing on that as well, what we've really started to build content or support in is in that team dynamics or that talent dynamics. With the ever-changing workplace, more and more people are being brought into existing teams, or where they're recreating the type of team that are working together, and that's become just as important as understanding yourself, or that self-awareness piece, because again, putting people into situations where they have to work with people who are unlike them, and we do encourage diversity, and that we feel that fosters innovation. When you have different individuals coming together that may not necessarily have necessarily worked together before, it's creating workshops or creating opportunities for them to apply that knowledge and understand, or have the frameworks in place or the tools in place to understand very quickly how to work together and get the best outcome for everyone involved.
This is also so important for our next trend. We are tapping into, or we have the ability to tap into, a global talent pool. We don't have to hire somebody from the same country or the same postcode anymore. We can literally tap into skill sets from all over the world. And especially in Australia, where we face a talent shortage, especially in the STEM and the IT industries, that's the best way to scale a business on also mostly at a cost-effective base.
Yes, and technology has allowed us to tap into that global workforce so much more. So not just organisations can afford it, but even the small and medium-sized businesses that may have never really tapped into talent like that before have the capability of tapping into that talent. And so in a sense, there are some people that have been working together for a good period of time and never actually face-to-face met or communicated. So it does change the way that we manage performance, how we bring people together in terms of group goals or team goals. It's even changing the way that we set expectations in terms of what job you do and how that impacts or contributes to the job that I do. So it's changing not only the technology is not only creating connection or closeness because it's it's become a necessity, but it's also changing the way that we interact with one another.
And this interaction is such a key skill of tomorrow, because if we don't have this physical interaction with each other, we can't see their emotions, their facial expressions, their body language. We cannot interpret what they actually mean. So we have to be really clear what we want, what we expect, and also how we come across from a personal perspective.
Yes, so in terms of how you can get more savvy in this regard, it's definitely put the investment into learning how to manage in virtual environments, looking at the technology and how that's enabled you to communicate more effectively, or on the other side of things, how you could communicate differently, or knowing that you have different talent working with you. There's so many different opportunities to learn and change the way that you create outcomes in this space.
Our next trend, we're halfway through, our next trend number 6 is we see businesses are more location independent, which means we, with access to information, to technology, to workspaces, we don't actually have to have a physical environment anymore. We can do business from our phones more often.
Definitely all our portable devices, and also just as a way of attracting the best talent. Some of our talent is not within driving distance or within distance to our physical environments or our offices, so to speak. So if you want to remain an employer of choice, you need to really consider that this is a part of your world, a part of the benefits of working with you. And as leaders, if it's not something that you have started considering, it really has been something that has been in the making for the last few years. Would we say, Petra?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so the idea that people making decisions based on location is very much the thinking of the past. People are applying for jobs in different countries and applying for jobs that are based on deliverables as opposed to how much time they can put in and so on. So that agile kind of thinking is very necessary in order to make sure that you've got the right talent working for you.
Definitely the agile thinking, but also the setup of technology. Is it possible in your organization that somebody could work remotely, or they come from a different country and still get access to all the critical information that they need in order to do their work? So it definitely requires a little bit of a change of mindset, but also on the infrastructure setup to attract and retain the best talents.
Yes, definitely. So with our next trend, we're talking about the rise of AI in the workforce. So AI taking or replacing some of our roles, so that it then becomes an opportunity for us as people to develop new job titles, new positions, ones that we've never probably even had a chance to create before. So in terms of AI and what we've seen, that's just been accelerated probably more so in the last year or so, especially because now there's so much data that we are putting out there publicly that AI is basically learning from all of that data and becoming much smarter as a result.
Speaking of data, this is leading into our next trends. We've got more access to data than ever before. And there are studies that show that 80% of data available today has been generated in the last 2 years. What it means is that we don't necessarily need to have more and more data, even though we obviously get it, but it's about, can we make sense out of data? Can we apply the insights into the business and into actionable steps, which again requires a different skill set. So the data aspect certainly has a big impact on the future of work and how we navigate through.
Yeah, so these two trends probably do partner well, I think, in that we talk about the rise of AI, but then the data that AI is learning from is also, I guess, that second part of, you know, the two trends together. And it's absolutely shaping the way we work. So, for example, as leaders, we are now getting much more enriched or deep dive insights that is allowing us to make very different decisions about the way that we operate or the way that we do business. As an individual, it's definitely a skill that everyone should be practicing, because we get so much information, and creating meaningful insights from the data that we have access to will allow us to become much better at not only our jobs, but also influencing the decisions that we make for ourselves or for the businesses that we work for.
So as a practical takeout, don't think of data as only information, but see it as insights. What does it actually mean for the business, and how can you interpret the data into language that everyone understands and everyone is on the same page? And Jen, you also mentioned before that with AI especially, the workforce is changing, and it takes already the heavy load of some of the tasks that we're currently doing off us, which leads us into trend number 9. More and more employees are not full-time employees anymore.
Yes.
We see the rise of project-based working, of the gig economy, and more the self-paced work.
Yeah, definitely. There was a period of time as a consultant where a majority of my job was basically managing changes through restructures and redundancies. So I was not the most popular person at work. However, from a business perspective, it's actually a really costly way of managing your workforce. Creating so many redundancies, restructures, I think I was on average within one organisation seeing something of sizable nature, either a restructure, redundancy, or a combination of the two, every 6 months.
Wow.
So you can imagine how quickly things are turning, and those things are put into place for businesses as a way of changing significantly their structure or their output or their teams, or essentially the way that they operate, right? And so it's actually not a great way to have permanent employees, because you're essentially putting people in roles saying that this is always going to be the way that it is.
Yeah.
And we all know and have been talking about the fact that in 6 months' time, in 12 months' time, there are innovations that are just disrupting the way that we work so quickly that we have no way of essentially knowing exactly what's around the corner. So the move towards more contractual or casual, or even bring experts in for periods of time, allow organisations to have that agile ability to bring in talent as they require, and sort of that on-demand sort of way of having a workforce without making commitments on a permanent basis.
And our last trend is probably also the trend that helps businesses to be sustainable in this future of work. What is the purpose of the business, and what is the core of it? It needs to be more than just a profit, for more than just one reason. It attracts the right talents who align with your values, and especially millennials. They embrace purpose much more than previous generations. They are also more conscious about their impact on the environment. And from a company perspective, if you go beyond profitability, you actually constantly create need for fulfilling this purpose with the next level of technology, of staff.
Yes, and that whole integration of who we are at work and who we are in personal life, and even things like our learning or the customer experience being very similar to the employee experience, all of this kind of multi-integrational way of working, if that's such a word, is also a driving force for that purpose-driven. We want to align with things that allow us to be ourselves, essentially. So how we are at home, we want it to be the same as at work. And so we're becoming much more conscious of what we represent in professionally and personally. And I think organisations in a way have to create that identity as well, so that we are attracting like for like.
Yeah. All right, that was a lot of information. Just to sum up our top 10 trends for 2020 and beyond. Number 1, millennials make up 50% of the workforce.
Second one is around the changing careers. So within traditional ways of looking at a career, we actually are looking at more averages around 17 jobs an average of 1.8 years in one lifetime, and that's just in Generation Z.
Number 3 is learning is changing. We need to create more micro moments in terms of micro courses and more agile ways to upskill.
Number 4 is around more complexity, more ambiguity in our workplaces, and solving for problems that don't even exist yet, and that's becoming more of a normal more and more.
Number 5 is we can tap into a global talent pool.
Number 6 is around that location independence and that need to ensure that we attract talent that may not necessarily be able to physically work in an office.
Number 7 is the rise of AI in the workforce.
Number 8, to partner with that, is around data overload and making sense of the data that we have access to.
Number 9 is that we see full-time employees drop and project-based and gig workers are on the rise.
And finally, number 10 is that purpose-driven business is becoming more and more relevant for both talent and consumers.
I hope you're as excited as we are for the future of work. And make sure you tune in for our next episodes where we dig deeper into how you can actually prepare for those changes and not only respond to those disruptions, but actually create disruption on your terms.
Thanks for listening.
And that wraps up another insightful conversation about the future of work. And now we want to hear from you. What was the biggest takeaway from this conversation? Make sure you share your learnings on LinkedIn and also tag our guest speakers. And of course, if you or somebody you know has some more interesting take on the future of work, send us an email to contact@wearefuture.com. Until next time, and keep creating the future of work.